He was the ultimate gentleman spy on screen, suave, unshakable, untouchable. But behind the charm, Pierce Brosnan carried a secret list. 5 names. 5 actors he could never forgive. What could make 007 hold a grudge? Was it betrayal, rivalry, or something far deeper? One of them stole the role he'd built his life around. Another made filming unbearable, and one nearly destroyed his career entirely. For the first time, Brosnan's silence cracks, and the truth behind those 5 names finally comes to light. Who were they? What did they do? And why has he kept this list for decades? The answers might change everything you thought you knew about Hollywood's most elegant Bond. Number 1. Christopher Brosnan. In Hollywood, grudges are common, but few are as tragic, or as personal, as the one between Pierce Brosnan and his adopted son, Christopher. To the public, Pierce was the picture of composure, the world's suavest secret agent, the unflappable 007. But behind closed doors, there was bitterness, heartbreak, and a quiet hatred, born not of ego, but of helplessness. "I hate what this world did to him," Brosnan once told a close friend. "I hate that I couldn't stop it." Their story began beautifully. When Pierce married Cassandra Harris in 1980, he didn't just marry a woman. He inherited a family. Christopher and Charlotte, Cassandra's children from a previous marriage, were just kids when their biological father died. Brosnan adopted them, promising to give them the stable love he never had. For a time, it worked. It wasn't about being a father, he told people. It was about being a family. But after Cassandra's death from ovarian cancer in 1991, everything broke. Christopher, then 19, spiraled into addiction and rage. He was lost, a family friend recalled. He blamed the world, but deep down he blamed Pierce. Brosnan threw money, therapy, and forgiveness at the problem, but each gesture seemed to drive Christopher further away. By the late 1990s, their relationship had collapsed. Christopher was arrested for drunk driving in 1996, then again the following year. Brosnan paid the fines quietly, but was crushed. "It's not the mistakes that kill you, it's watching someone you love make them twice," he said during a 2001 interview, his voice trembling. When Tomorrow Never Dies and The World Is Not Enough began filming, Brosnan used his influence to bring Christopher aboard behind the scenes, hoping the structure might heal him. It didn't. "He'd show up late, distracted and angry," said one crew member. "You could see Pierce trying to hold it together, but there was resentment there. You could feel it." The tabloids eventually labeled Christopher the Bond actor's junkie son. The humiliation stung them both. Pierce stopped mentioning him publicly, his tone turning cold and distant. "He's on his own journey," he told an interviewer in 2013 after Christopher's arrest for drug possession. "I can't walk it for him." For Christopher, that silence was betrayal. In a rare outburst overheard by a friend, he reportedly said, "He adopted me for the cameras and abandoned me for his image." Another source close to him added, "Chris always felt like a shadow, first to Dermot Harris, then to Bond." The wedge deepened when Brosnan publicly mourned his daughter Charlotte's death in 2013, but made no reference to Christopher. "That was the final break," a friend revealed. "He took it as Pierce pretending he didn't exist." By 2024, Christopher had vanished from the public eye. Paparazzi photos showed him outside a London grocery store, thin, aged, unrecognizable. When asked if he'd spoken to his father, he reportedly muttered, "No." Not in years. There's nothing to say. And yet, beneath the bitterness, both men still seemed trapped by love that never fully died. Brosnan continued sending quiet support through intermediaries, ensuring Christopher had access to care. A longtime friend confirmed, "He checks in, just never directly." It's how he copes, with distance. The feud between them was never theatrical. No public shouting, no tabloid war. It was quieter, crueler, a lifetime of missed chances, heavy silences, and unspoken regret. Did it ever end? Not really. In 2025, Christopher remains estranged, living privately in London. Brosnan, now 72, rarely mentions his name. When asked about forgiveness, he once sighed, "Sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes the person you're trying to save doesn't want to be saved." Number 2. Daniel Craig. Pierce Brosnan has always believed in loyalty and grace, the quiet codes that make Hollywood bearable. But in 2004, that faith was shattered with one phone call that ended his reign as James Bond. "You were a great James Bond. Thank you very much. Goodbye 47 seconds. That was it." And the man chosen to replace him without a single word of respect or acknowledgement was Daniel Craig. At first, Brosnan tried to stay gracious. "I wish him well," he said in early interviews. But the wound ran deep. There should have been more grace, more class, he later admitted. To him, Bond wasn't just a role. It was a decade of his life, a family he helped rebuild. Watching Craig take over felt like watching his own legacy vanish overnight. "It was like watching someone else raise your child," he once confessed. Craig, meanwhile, stayed silent for years, until 2015 when he finally commented, "Pierce was great for his time, but Bond had to change. You can't play him with a wink anymore." For Brosnan, that line stung. He saw Craig's Bond as cold, violent, stripped of the charm he'd fought to preserve. Off camera, he told friends, they turned Bond into Born with a Tux. Still, time dulled the resentment. In 2022, when Craig said, "I respect the hell out of him. Without Pierce, I wouldn't have had the role," Brosnan paused and replied softly, "Good. Then it's as it should be. Their feud never exploded. It simmered. Two bonds divided by tone and timing, forever linked by the silence between them." Number 3. Timothy Dalton. If there's one thing Pierce Brosnan values above all else, it's loyalty, the unspoken kind that binds friends in an industry built on competition. But when Timothy Dalton was announced as the new James Bond in 1986, that loyalty cracked. It wasn't just professional heartbreak. It was personal. Brosnan had been the chosen one. Albert Cubby Broccoli himself had picked him as Roger Moore's successor. Even Ian Fleming's widow said he was the Bond her husband had imagined. "Everything was ready," Brosnan later recalled. "I was standing on the threshold." But then fate and NBC intervened. As soon as the Bond rumors went public, NBC renewed Remington Steele for more episodes. Contractually bound, Brosnan was forced to walk away. "It was like watching your dream snatched from your hands," he said years later. That's when Dalton stepped in. He hadn't stolen the role. He'd simply been next in line. Yet to Brosnan, it felt like betrayal wrapped in professionalism. Dalton was a friend, a man he'd once laughed with on sets and at parties. Now he was wearing the tuxedo Pierce was meant to fill. "I had to smile through it," Brosnan once admitted, masking the sting with British poise. But inside it hurt like hell. Dalton's Bond was different, colder, more brooding, less wink and more grit. Critics praised the realism, but fans were divided. License to Kill underperformed in the U.S., and whispers spread that Dalton's tenure was temporary. Brosnan never gloated, but the subtext was clear in one interview years later. "Timing is everything in this business. Sometimes the right man comes at the wrong time." Privately, Brosnan carried the resentment for years, especially as his wife Cassandra's health declined. She had championed his Bond dream from the beginning, telling him he was born for the tuxedo. Watching Dalton play the role while she was dying of cancer compounded the pain. "That part was ours," he confided to a close friend, "and I lost it twice, to Hollywood and to life." When Dalton stepped down in 1994, Brosnan finally got the call. GoldenEye made him a global icon, the Bond of a new generation. Dalton publicly congratulated him, saying, Pierce was always meant to be Bond. But Brosnan's reply was guarded. Tim did his part with grace. Now it's my turn. They've since appeared cordial in public, sharing smiles at Bond anniversaries and red carpets. Yet insiders say the friendship never recovered. It wasn't hate, one producer remarked. It was a wound that never fully closed. Today, Brosnan speaks of Dalton with quiet respect, but also distance. He carried the torch when I couldn't, he said in 2020. I respect that, but it took me years to make peace with it. And that's the truth of it. Pierce Brosnan never hated Timothy Dalton, the man. He hated what he represented, the lost years, the dream deferred, and the cruel reminder that in Hollywood, timing isn't everything. It's the only thing. Number 4. A-list diva co-star. For Pierce Brosnan, filmmaking has always been about respect. Respect for the story, for the craft, and most of all, for the people who make it possible. He comes from the old school of acting, where professionalism isn't an option, it's a duty. That's why the chaos that unfolded on the set of Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again, hit him like a betrayal. From the outside, the film was pure sunshine, laughter, music, Mediterranean warmth. But behind the scenes, it was anything but. According to crew members, the tension began when an A-list diva co-star began making demands that rattled the entire production. She controlled the energy on set, one production assistant said. If she was in a bad mood, everyone felt it. Brosnan, who had joined the film hoping for a light-hearted break from the darkness of his Bond years, found himself instead walking into what one insider called a storm dressed in sequins. Brosnan kept his composure at first. He showed up on time, shook hands with crew members, and treated everyone equally, from the director to the lighting grip. But as the actress's behavior escalated, late arrivals, last-minute rewrites, emotional outbursts, Brosnan's patience wore thin. He hated how she treated people, a set decorator recalled. He'd say quietly, "This isn't how we work. This isn't right." One day, when the actress refused to rehearse until her trailer was moved closer to the set, Brosnan reportedly turned to the director and said, "Just get the scene. I'll adjust." It was a line that spoke volumes about who he was and what he was up against. For Brosnan, this wasn't just about ego. It was about values. After a lifetime marked by loss, his father's absence, his wife Cassandra's death, his daughter Charlotte's passing, kindness and stability weren't small things to him. They were sacred. Watching someone derail a film with vanity and tantrums struck a nerve. He said it reminded him of everything he hated about Hollywood, a close friend later revealed. The narcissism, the cruelty, the entitlement. When the tabloids began running photos of Brosnan looking tense on set, the narrative twisted. Headlines hinted at him being difficult, but insiders quickly pushed back. He was the calm in the chaos, said one assistant director. He wasn't angry. He was disappointed. He just wanted to get through the shoot without more people being humiliated. The so-called diva never addressed the rumors directly, but her response came through interviews dripping with self-congratulation. "Filmmaking is emotional," she told Variety. "Sometimes passion gets mistaken for difficulty." Brosnan never fired back publicly, but in private he was blunt. "Passion doesn't mean making people cry," he told a friend. "It means caring enough to show up and do the work." When filming wrapped, Brosnan skipped several promotional events, not out of spite, but exhaustion. He just needed to detox from the energy, one insider said. It was one of the few times he questioned if kindness still had a place in Hollywood. Years later, Brosnan still refuses to name her. He's too dignified for that. But his silence says more than any quote ever could. The feud didn't end with shouting. It ended with distance. He moved on quietly, carrying the lesson with him, that even in a world of make-believe, some performances cut too close to real-life arrogance. Today, if asked about Mamma Mia, Brosnan smiles politely and says, "It was beautiful on screen." Then he changes the subject. And that's Pierce Brosnan in a nutshell, a gentleman to the end, who still believes in grace even when grace wasn't shown to him. Number 5. The industry executive. For Pierce Brosnan, betrayal didn't come with a scandal. It came with a phone call. 47 seconds long. No meeting, no handshake. Just a voice saying, "You were a great James Bond. Thank you very much. Goodbye." After 4 blockbuster films and nearly a decade as 007, Brosnan had revived a dying franchise. Yet to one ambitious studio executive, he was no longer an icon. He was a problem. "Too old, too expensive, too Bond," read one internal note. The decision had been made months earlier. The call was just the cleanup. "It was utterly shocking," Brosnan later said. "I thought we were doing Bond 21. I was completely bewildered." For him, it wasn't just being fired, it was being erased. There should have been more grace, more class. The unnamed executive defended the move, claiming, "The franchise needed a new direction." To Brosnan, that was corporate cowardice. "You don't honor the future by burying the past," he told a close friend. In days, Brosnan's asking price dropped from $12 million to $3 million. Projects vanished. "He gave them everything," one associate said, "and they couldn't even look him in the eye." Brosnan never named the man. He didn't have to. His silence was the indictment. He's never returned for Bond tributes, reunions, or anniversaries. "I've made peace," he once said, "but some wounds never close." The executive rose higher in the studio ranks. Brosnan rebuilt his career elsewhere. But for the man who once defined cool under fire, that 47-second call remains the coldest moment of his life. In the end, Pierce Brosnan's story isn't just about fame or failure. It's about how even the most composed men can be cut deepest by silence, betrayal, and pride. Whether it was a co-star's arrogance, a studio's cold decision, or the ghosts of roles that slipped away, each wound told a story of loyalty tested and lessons learned. But what do you think? Was Brosnan justified in holding on to that resentment, or was Hollywood simply doing what it always does, moving on? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more untold stories like this.